Being a competitor means that you show up when things aren't really going your way. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the OT and OT podcast, the show where we go overtime on all things sports and off topic on everything else. Listen, there is a big difference between being an athlete and being a competitor, and I don't think enough people talk about it. You can tell the guys that are talented. You can tell the guys that have gifts. There's a reason that those people are in the big leagues, in the NBA, in the NFL, wherever it may be. There's a reason they're there, is because they have the gifts and they have the talents, and they're highly intelligent in their sport. But that does not mean that every athlete in there is a true competitor. And today, that's what we're going to hit on. Growing up, I did not watch a ton of sports all the time. I was able to watch the games that were on TV because I had local channels like CBS, ABC, Fox. I had the local stuff. I had games that were close to me. But even then, I could tell who was a true competitor versus who was out there just playing. Talent is very obvious in professional sports. You know who has the talent. You know who has the gifts. But it's when you really start to watch the games over and over again of the same people, which one of those guys that is talented, that is gifted, you can tell which one of them is really competing every second of the game that they're in. Being a competitor means that you show up when things aren't really going your way. It means that you can turn it around like that and do something that changes the momentum of the game. You can't just rely on your athletic ability all the time because that's only going to get you so far. In the moments where it really matters, you have to have that mentality of being a true competitor to pull through for your team and your guys when they need you the most. Because a lot of people do just go out and play because they can. They have the athletic ability, they have the talent, they have the gifts to do so. But being a competitor, that shows up when there is a lot of pressure and something is going wrong. When the game is on the line and your shots aren't falling or you can't complete a pass, when things get uncomfortable, that's when the true competitors step up and stand out. And when I think about that, there's a few guys that pop into my mind. Guys like LeBron James. He's had pressure on him since the very beginning. Since he got drafted, since he was in high school, there's been so much pressure on him. He's the golden child, basically. He's the next Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, and he's shown that he's a true competitor for the last 20 plus years. Guys like Stephen Curry, he's not the most dominant player on the floor when it comes to stature or ability, but he plays with such a confidence that he changes the game every single time he steps on the floor. I think about moments like in the 2013 NBA Finals with Danny Green. He kind of shows both sides of the spectrum. He's a true competitor. He hit 7 threes in one game to help them win that game, to force another game in the series. I think it was actually game 3. But after that game, he wasn't consistent with that. He had a hard time. So in that moment, he was being a true competitor. He felt it. He was boom, 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 one after the other. 7 threes. I read up on it. I think they made 13 to 20, somewhere in that range throughout the entire game. And he had 7 himself. I think it was 13. 7 3-pointers alone. I believe at that time, that was an NBA Finals record per individual. And I think that was a record-setting game for most threes made in a finals game up to that point by a team. It was hard for him to stay consistent throughout the entire finals. Guys like Derrick Rose, never won a ring, never won a championship, but he pulled through in the moments that mattered the most. He pulled through because his rookie year, dude went out just guns a-blazing. Youngest guy ever to win the MVP. That's a true competitor. He comes back off of injury, and in the last couple years of his career, has his highest scoring game. 50 points on Halloween night for the Timberwolves. I remember watching highlights of that game. Dude was a competitor. He was a freak of nature. He was a great athlete, but he competed every single time he stepped on the floor. Guys like Tom Brady never backed down from anyone. He always stepped up to the challenge and did everything he could to put his team in a position to win games every single time. Guys like that are who we're going to be talking about today. But what actually separates an athlete from a competitor? Why do some people rise when everything's on the line and some don't? It honestly applies more than to just sports. It applies to our entire lives. When are we going to step up, and when are we going to fall short? And that's what we're going to hit on today. Let's freaking get into it. We're going to start from the guys that I've been talking about. LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Danny Green, Tom Brady. Guys that have made a true difference in the sports that they play, that have made us rethink how these sports are played in the future. We're going to start with LeBron James. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy behind LeBron James about him being the GOAT or him being in the top 5, whatever it may be. Okay? For me personally, he's not my GOAT, but you have to give credit where credit's due. Since he got drafted, he has been a dominant force individually. You know, he has taken some not great teams to the finals and somewhat competed. He's had one of the most historic comebacks in NBA Finals history. He's the all-time leader in points. Dude's been balling for 20-plus. You can't deny that. This is his 23rd season. 22nd season? 22nd or 23rd. Either way, he's been completely balling for 20-plus years. He's competed in the highest moments of the NBA. He's been to the finals 10 times. I mean, you can't deny that is a true competitor. He's taken bum teams to the finals, and he's given the other teams a run for his money. A run for their money, I should say. You can't deny that the pressure that he had put on him from a young age of 17 to going into the finals and pulling through, and like I said, having one of the greatest comebacks in NBA Finals history, down 3-1 for a city that had never won a championship. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true. I think it was just a drought. I think it was like 40 years or something like that since they'd won a championship in Cleveland. You know, the iconic moment, Cleveland, this is for you. You know, like he truly competed, and he truly still is competing to this day. I have to give him props. Now, he may not be my GOAT, but he's definitely in the top 3 guys of all time. He has to be. There's just no doubt about it. He's been so good for so long that you can't deny it. His longevity and his dominance is undeniable. True competitor right there. And now we go to another guy. Very different than LeBron James, but also has that same mentality and that same dominant force. Stephen Curry. Arguably the greatest shooter of all time. Some people disagree. I definitely agree that he's the greatest shooter of all time. And I grew up watching people like Ray Allen. Guys that just so smooth, always hit. You know, I argued that Ray Allen was a better shooter than Stephen Curry for a long time. But after watching Stephen Curry for the last 10 years, I had to change my mind. He is the greatest shooter of all time. He may not be, you know, the greatest point guard of all time, which is okay. But he has changed the game in such a way that, you know, same as what people do with Kobe Bryant. You know, the little fadeaway, Kobe. Like, every time somebody pulls up for 3, if they're just goofing around or whatever, everybody knows Stephen Curry. Curry! Throw up a 3. I don't think non-dominant players and non-competitors do that. People that don't compete aren't changing the game of basketball, aren't changing the game of football. Those people don't change games. People like Stephen Curry have changed the game. He's not the biggest guy. and he never will be the biggest guy. He's 6'3", probably, 210? I don't know how much he weighs, but he just has the confidence and the ability to pull off whatever he wants. He can step up and do anything that he wants to throughout the game. He'll pull up from 14 feet behind the three-point line. Bang. I'm sure that you can talk to anybody that has ever guarded Stephen Curry, and they will say he is one of the hardest people to guard because he never stops moving, and he is always looking for the best opportunity to score the basketball. He's a true competitor. Yes, he had help from a few guys, in his finals career, but he took LeBron James and won in the finals. Yeah, we're talking about two of the greatest players in their position of all time. And, some people, bag on LeBron for his, bubble championship or whatever. But, given who he had versus the 2017 Warriors, I'm not going to get too controversial, but, when you bring Kevin Durant to a team that's already pretty stacked with athletes, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Stephen Curry, those guys aren't bums. Those guys are a great team alone. Then you bring in Kevin Durant. You're kind of really OP at that point. But still doesn't change the fact that he's won the same amount of championships as LeBron. So, given that, and his ability to change the game the way he did from three-point line, he's the record holder for most threes ever made. And there's a reason. He is just that good, and he was looked upon from college. His run with Davidson into the March Madness tournament, I believe they made it to the Elite Eight, if I'm not mistaken. True competitor, another true competitor right there. And going off of Stephen Curry into another guy that I said kind of is a little bit polarizing in terms of competitor versus athlete, Mr. Danny Green. This is one of the first moments that I ever remember from watching basketball games, especially the NBA. Watching the San Antonio Spurs versus the Miami Heat in these finals back-to-back, 2013 and 2014. These were two of my most favorite finals to watch because I loved the Spurs. I absolutely loved watching Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Tim Duncan. I loved watching them. They were my favorite team to watch for sure, by any means. Okay, but I also knew that the Miami Heat had the big three: Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh. And the reason it made it so fun to watch was because you had competitors on both sides of the ball, and you also had kind of those role players for both teams. We go into Danny Green. Okay, he leads them, I believe, to a Game 3 win versus the Miami Heat. And this is a guy that, is a role player. He doesn't step up in the biggest moments all the time, but in this moment he did. And that's kind of what matters in this conversation is he stepped up when it was a time that mattered the most. Because I do believe at this point, I could be wrong. I believe it was tied 1-1 at that point. I could be wrong. So it was tied 1-1 going into Game 3. Danny Green goes off for this incredible performance. They end up winning, but then I think they ended up losing the series. I could be wrong about that. I can't remember. It's been 13 plus years. Anyways, he steps up. He has an unbelievable performance shooting from three. The team has an unbelievable performance shooting from three. But then the rest of the series, I believe Danny Green just kind of, I don't want to say falls off the edge of the earth, but it kind of seemed like that's what he did. He stepped up in this one game, and then he kind of fell off the rest. I don't believe that he really hit many more threes after that game, which sucks because he could have had a historic finals run, but he just crumbled when it mattered the most. And that's unfortunate because to this day, I still really like to see Danny Green I liked kind of watching him, see where he went after the Spurs, following his career a little bit. But it just sucks that one of my favorite guys to watch back in that time kind of fell off a little bit. And I knew his potential. I honestly really like his form. His shooting form, to me, I really like it. I don't know why, but it was just one that I truly enjoyed watching. It was somewhat like a Ray Allen-esque form. And, you know, I would bet that some people don't like Ray Allen's form, but I think it was great. Anyways, he was just a guy. He was just a guy that had a role spot on a great team and had a great game. He was being a true competitor at that time. After that, he just relied on his athleticism to pull him through when it mattered. And it mattered, but he couldn't pull through because he didn't have that true competitive nature inside of him. And then we go into one of my favorite basketball players of all time. This guy influenced me so much that he was one of the reasons I started playing basketball. He's one of the reasons that I wore his shoes for 2+ years. Mr. Derrick Rose. I have never seen anybody in my life compete the way that Derrick Rose has or had back then. I just remember watching some highlights. Dude is a small guy. I believe he's like 6'1" or 6'2". I could be wrong. A lot like Stephen Curry, not as good as at the 3-point, but he just straight dog. Like, he's one of the most athletic point guards that I think anybody has ever seen before. Dude could, you've seen the clip. He goes up, two-hand slams it. I think it's on Steve Nash, actually, against the Suns. Goes up. He had to have like a 50-inch vertical. Dude could fly. You've definitely seen the clips of Derrick Rose just flying, competing. He had a pretty good mid-shot or mid-range. He could hit threes when he needed to, but he just flat out was a competitor. Truly raw talent, very gifted, super athletic, but he competed all the time. And that's the whole point of this episode is, who are the guys that compete? Who are the guys that pull through in the moments that matter the most? Now, there's a fine line by saying who pulled through in the moments that mattered the most, because Derrick Rose never made the finals. And I'm strictly talking for the Bulls here. Yeah, he never made it to the finals with any team, but he did everything he absolutely could to get his team there. I believe it was the Eastern Conference Finals in 2015 or 2016, one of those 2 years, when, Derrick Rose hits that buzzer beater right at the end of regulation to send it to, I think it was game 5. I think they just tied the series up at 2-2 with that shot. He sent it to game 5, hit a fader from the wing, 3-pointer, banked it in. I remember watching that live on TV, and I thought to myself, holy crap, like, this is a freaking dog. Like, he did it. He pulled through in a moment that mattered the most, and that's one of my top 3 moments of all time, honestly, in basketball. One of the best things I've ever seen on TV as a basketball fan from the Bulls. I'm a Bulls fan, unfortunately, because they're not that great now. They've been kind of stagnant for the last 30 years. Since Michael Jordan, went on his dominant run. But that's the reason I'm a Bulls fan, and like I mentioned in the last episode, that's why I'm also a North Carolina fan. But anyways, Derrick Rose, one of my favorite athletes of all time. He's a dog. Love that guy. We've talked a lot about basketball. There's a lot of football guys I would talk about. The only thing that I really have to say about football is it's hard to, change the game so quickly, because in basketball it's go, 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 go all the time. you have timeouts and breaks and stuff. But in football, it's, okay, we have this one play, we get up to the line, we call another play, and then we go from there. So it's not as quick pace as basketball is, so it's kind of harder to define, those guys that are true competitors all the time versus who are just the athletes. But I mean, like I mentioned before, you have guys like Tom Brady. He may have been one of the rudest people in the room when it came to football, but there's no doubt about it that he competed every single time he stepped on the field. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly where he wanted to go. And I mean, I've heard other people telling stories about him chewing them out because they didn't do it exactly like he wanted them to. People say the same thing about like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. And, there's also a reason why those three guys are correlated with being the GOAT. Because they had just that killer mentality where we are going to win every single time we step on the floor. Those are the guys that are competitors. Those are the guys that you have to look at and say, this is the leader of the team. This is the guy that's going to do anything to change the game if he absolutely needs to. I'm not saying that being a jerk is the best way to show that you're a competitor, but if you watch the Last Dance documentary, Michael Jordan went from playing on a team that really couldn't give a crap less about basketball and doing everything he could to pull his team through to an NBA Finals his first couple years. And, he scored 60 on the Celtics. That was the best team in the NBA at that time. Nobody was doing that. Nobody was doing that except Michael Jordan. And everybody will tell you, they've mentioned, he's like, oh, well, that's Black Jesus. There's a reason he has that nickname. There's a reason he's called the Black Cat. He struck fear into people's eyes. He made people understand, I am here to beat you. You hear the stories of he made things up to have a reason to hate you. He made things up to give himself a reason to go compete and absolutely destroy you every single chance he gets. Well, I don't know many people that are doing that. That dude was a true competitor. And I'm saying the word competitor a lot, but we have to start getting over the fact that these guys are talented. There's a reason that, we have to get into the point of saying, okay, we want to praise the guys that compete. Not the guys that are just talented, the guys that will go out there and compete every second of every game that they play. Because in my opinion, honestly, I'm getting tired of us just saying, oh yeah, these guys are all so talented, blah, 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 blah. And giving them a reason why they shouldn't perform in the biggest moments. I'm watching a couple games through March Madness right now. And I'm thinking, this is the most highly talented team in the tournament, or one of the most highly talented teams, and they're crumbling. They are absolutely losing it. What the heck is going on here? And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why being a competitor is not being talked about. Because we've relied so much on just giving people credit for having athletic ability and being a talented athlete. Nobody's saying, hey, you're a true competitor. Go out and change this game for us. I watched the UNC VCU game. UNC is a very talented team. They showed absolutely no competitiveness in that game, in my opinion. I'm a UNC fan. They didn't show that. VCU came out and they stepped up from the very beginning. They struggled. UNC, they led with talent throughout the game. They were up by 19, 20 points at one point. And then guess what happened? They kind of let off because their competitive nature isn't as high. And VCU stepped it on. They turned it on just like that. And they came back and won because they had guys on their team that were willing to compete every second of the game. You can't turn it off. You have to have it on, and you have to keep it on throughout the entire game. And that's why you lose in the biggest moments, in the biggest games that you are playing at that moment. And that's why UNC lost in the first round. I look at teams like Duke in the first round. They almost lost to a 16 seed because they did not compete. They rely on their talent. And even yesterday, sorry, I'm recording on Sunday, their game yesterday, same thing. You almost let a team get into it that does not deserve to beat you because you are a better team athletically. You have more talent. You have some of the best guys in the nation on your team, and you almost choke again. If Duke plays like that again next week, they are not going to win another game. They have to have the competitive nature every second of the game. And I'm not trying to bash on, teams or people, but it's obvious to your eye when you see it. These teams cannot just rely on athletic ability. And that's my whole point is what I'm trying to say is everybody is still just giving credit for being talented. Screw that. You should be competing. We should have competitors on the floor, not just talented athletes. We should have competitors, teams built for competitive people. If you aren't, you're not going to win a championship. The teams that pull through and go to the championships are the teams that compete all the time. They're not the teams that are just sitting there relying on their athletic ability, relying on their talent to win games. Because when you're down by 5 and you're only athletic and you're only talented, you're not going to win that game. I'm sorry. Step it up. Be a competitor. Be like these guys that I've listed. Show up when it matters the most. Do what you need to do for your team to win. Don't be talented. Well, be talented, but don't just be talented. Be a competitor. Be a freaking dog. Be the one that you're going to be talked about after the game is over because they say, man, they really pulled through for the game. They really competed in the moments that mattered the most. Don't be the guy that they said, well, he's one of the most talented people on the floor, or she's the most talented person on the floor. But that's about it. They didn't go out there and compete. Don't be that person. Nobody wants to be known as that. Nobody wants to be known as, the highest ranked team in the nation, and then they crumble because they don't have competitors. Look at the Warriors again. We're going to go back to the Warriors. They put together a team that had the best record in all of NBA throughout the entire history of the game. And what happened in the finals? They lose because the other team competed better than they did. Don't be that team. Sorry for my little tangent. I just can't stand when people just go on and on and on about people that are just athletically inclined or people that are super talented. Because to me, that doesn't matter the most. You can be talented. But if you're not competing, I don't want to watch you. I don't want to see you go on a fast break and there's nobody in front of you and do a windmill. Yeah, that's talent. That's not that's not being a competitor. Being a competitor is being down by 3 and not just hoping for a 3-pointer and saying, I'm going to get to the rim and I'm going to dunk on you because that's my job. I'm doing that. It's being down by 4 and saying, it's 4th and 6. We're on the 35-yard line. Coach, I'm throwing this ball, and it's going to be a touchdown. Stand back and let me do it. Those are the competitors. Those are the guys that you should want on your team. Not just guys that are talented. Sorry, still going on with my tangent. This is very frustrating when you see guys that are talented but not competitors. This kind of brings me into my next point, and I wanted to talk more about a team and teams versus athletes individually. And I mentioned this before. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I actually thought that this episode was perfect to compare two things: the 2018 Super Bowl and the 2024 Super Bowl, 2025 Super Bowl. Sorry. I thought this was a great thing to compare because there's a significant difference between the two Super Bowls that the Eagles have that they've won And it really ties into our competitor versus athlete conversation. So let's start with the 2018 Super Bowl. Let's think about the guys on that team. Should they have won that game? No. Did they have the more talented team? No. Were they well versed in Super Bowl experience? No. You take away everything that people always look at. Okay, who's more talented? Who has more experience? Blah, 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 blah. Look at the difference from that team in 2018 from the team in 2025. What is the biggest difference you see? In 2025, the Philadelphia Eagles had arguably the most talented team of all time. Great wide receiver core, great running back, a quarterback that has, arguably been the best performing quarterback in the Super Bowl in the last 10 years. 2 times. Great head coach for the moment. Great offensive line. Great defensive backs. This team was riding on its athletic ability. Like piggyback on piggyback on piggyback. They had athletic ability stacked to the ceiling. The Chiefs also, did, yes. They're very athletic ability. They're a very athletic group of guys as well. They all are. But there are certain people on the Philadelphia Eagles in 2025 that were true competitors. Jalen Hurts. When they lost the Super Bowl in 2023, his wallpaper was them losing. He hated that. He put it as wallpaper on his phone so he could remember how he felt during that moment. That's a competitor. That dude wanted to come back and do better the next year. Didn't. Really played pretty bad the next year. But then he reached his goal. He got to where he wanted to be. Super Bowl champion. Super Bowl MVP. Dude competed. Saquon Barkley came from the New York Giants. Wanted to come to Philadelphia to compete for a Super Bowl. And he did. 2,000 plus rushing yards in one season. Huge accomplishment. Great accomplishment for that team. But then we go back to the 2018 Philadelphia Eagles that won the Super Bowl. Nick Foles was their freaking starting quarterback in the playoffs. He competed. He showed up in the biggest moments. The Philly special. Holy bananas. When I watched this game, I will tell you, I never felt so much intensity and so much vigor from a team like the Philadelphia Eagles showed that day. Unbelievable performance from everyone on the field. Defense was immaculate. Offense was immaculate. Everything was clicking for them that day. They were not the most talented team of the two. They just flat out competed better than the Patriots did. And like I mentioned, Tom Brady, they fought until the very last second. And to be honest with you, they were seconds away from making it happen, at least tying the game up. Seconds away. They competed too because they have one of the greatest competitors in NFL history, in my opinion. But the Philadelphia Eagles in 2018 versus the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles, there's a very big difference. 2025, you have the athletes. 2018, you have the competitors. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, add people to different columns on both of those teams, but there was more competitors in the 2018 Eagles than there was in the 2025 Eagles. Very grateful for both teams because, 2 Super Bowls, that's pretty awesome that I got to witness that in my lifetime. And I will always watch the Philadelphia Eagles. But it's like I said, I appreciated the 2018 Super Bowl a little bit more because those guys competed. Those guys did everything they could to win throughout the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. The playoffs. They did it. They competed against the best team in the NFL, the Patriots. The Patriots had a reign for A long time. I hated watching Tom Brady because he was just so freaking good. So when the Eagles beat them and rethinking how they played, I couldn't have been more happy. Dogs. Absolute dogs. Fought to the very last minute of the game and pulled it off. Very grateful for them. Kind of moving off of the Philadelphia Eagles into a local team that I really enjoy watching and I love, the Boise State Broncos. Their football team. They too, I believe, have had a reign in college football, especially in the Mountain West, for the last 15 years. They have been one of the best teams in the country in the Mountain West since I started watching them, at least. I mean, I want to talk about this because I think it's a very good thing to bring up, but it also goes on, to distinguish between being a competitor and being an athlete. And I hate to say that it showed up in professional careers as well. I think of when Boise State played Penn State in the college football playoffs and kind of how that game ended. A lot of people say Penn State dominated that game, which they did. Boise State did not play great. Made it very easy for Penn State to look dominant in that game, I will say. But then you also think about some of the stats. Penn State had not allowed a 100-plus yard rusher all season. Maybe one other time. Come along the Boise State Broncos. I mean, you look at Penn State, they have probably one of the most hyped college football programs in the country versus Boise. I mean, theirs is on such a large scale versus Boise State. I mean, obviously big in the Mountain West, the Western region. But, I mean, comparatively to Penn State, like Boise State's fan base is so much smaller and at such a smaller level than Penn State. It would be crazy to say that Boise State could compete with Penn State. But they did. But there were just a few moments that faltered their ability. You think of the fumble that they had, the turnovers. I mean, they were not able to consistently get going on offense. The game was a lot closer than the scoreboard showed. And that's one thing I've argued is, Boise State made 2 or 3 pretty big mistakes that led to them losing the game eventually. But outside of those mistakes, like they actually gave Penn State a decent run for their money. Either way, Boise State probably would have lost in the next round if they won, but they still did everything they could to win at that point. I mean, Ashton Jeanty, one of the most phenomenal running backs in the last 5 years, all across all of football. In my opinion, I think he's top 10 in the league already. He's a freak of nature. He's a competitor. He's an athlete. Had one of the greatest rushing seasons in college football history with Boise State. And that's what I'm saying is like, I do believe that Boise State has just that culture, that mentality, that true competitive nature that some colleges lack. Even in, the SEC, ACC, things like that, like the Big 10, Big 12, whatever it is, like some of those colleges don't even have, like they're much bigger than Boise State in terms of their athletes and their realm of football. But Boise State has showed up consistently every single year with dudes that will compete every game. And that's, as a fan, I truly appreciate that. I love watching them. It is just, it's hard, because you can't always have everybody that wants to compete. And watching Boise State, like I love watching them because they do compete every second of every game. And they have so many of those guys that are willing to put everything on the line to win games. And like I said, they've been one of the most dominant forces on the western side of the United States in smaller conferences for the last 15 years. They just have that culture of winning. And their coach also, very competitive, great competitor as a head coach. I could talk a lot about, growing up and watching sports. But like I said earlier in the episode, I didn't have cable. I didn't have anything like DirecTV or anything like that to watch every game that I ever wanted to. But growing up and watching sports, just casually allowed me to appreciate the guys that showed up every time I turned the TV on and watched them. The guys that did everything they could to win. And, I think being a casual fan has helped me appreciate that more and more, because I do have a lot of moments where I remember watching guys just hit those big shots, just being able to go out there and rely on their athletic ability and their talent to pull through in the moments that matter the most. With Stephen Curry hitting that long three-pointer to win the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like that moment will stick with me forever, because it was one of the greatest moments I've ever watched on live television. And, I'm not going to say I'm a Warriors fan, because I wouldn't say I'm not. But I am a Stephen Curry fan. I love watching him play. I feel very, not sympathetic, but I like feel for a lot of NBA players, in terms of it does kind of make me sad if they get hurt or things like that, because I just know, especially for guys like Curry that love competing, that love playing the game, and it sucks when they can't. So, like I said, casually being able to watch sports growing up has really changed my my outlook on what professional athletes are doing for the game that they're in. And I mean, I know we talked a lot about the NBA and NFL, but you can apply this to all sports. There's certain athletes that you can look at and say they're competing every time, and then you can look at some athletes in that same sport and say they're relying on their athletic ability to get them by. And I'm sure that you could have moments or examples of when those same players didn't show up for the team when they absolutely needed to, because they just don't have that authentic competitive nature within them. Having that is such an underrated skill and ability for professional athletes, because I think a lot of people, like I mentioned before, just look at them and say they're a talented person or a talented player. And that's not what we should look at all the time. We should be able to say, this guy competes better than you. You may be more talented, but he competes, and he's showing us that he's going to do better for us every single time. And the guys that I mentioned today are those people for those teams, or were those people for those teams. At the end of the day, talent might get you the opportunities, but being a true competitor is what shows up when everything is on the line. And to piggyback off of that, I know I talked a little bit about March Madness, but this is our OT corner of the day. We're going to hit on the March Madness update as of right now. Okay, we are through the first round and through the first round of the round of 32 as of day of recording. So I'm going to kind of hit on a few things that have happened up to this point. And like I said, North Carolina, sadly, they lost in the first round to VCU. I was very disappointed. I said this actually the day after they lost. I am one of those hopeless fans, or what? I don't know. It's like a hopeless romantic, but it's like for fan base. I don't know what I would call myself. I always have high expectations of my team through the tournament, and for the last 5 years, I've been let down the majority of times with the North Carolina Tar Heels. I mean, it happens all the time, and it sucks as a fan. Like, I watched the game. I was standing literally right next to my TV because I was hoping that somebody was going to make a shot, and it just didn't end up happening. Sadly, they couldn't pull through in overtime. But congrats to VCU, great job, and kudos to them. They played a very phenomenal second half. They deserved the win more than North Carolina, because like this episode, they just competed better when it mattered the most. So kudos to them. But let's kind of talk. I'm going to talk about a few different things, highlighted upsets of the week. We have High Point over Wisconsin. I also watched this game. An absolute banger. High Point played a phenomenal game. They did everything they could to win, and they pulled through in the moments that mattered the most. I genuinely thought that Wisconsin was going to pull through and hit that last second shot, but High Point did it. That was a phenomenal upset. VCU also over North Carolina, 11 seed versus a 6 seed. I'm not going to talk about that more before I start crying. And Texas over BYU. Now, I live in an area that is highly BYU fans. And I have said this, and this is a point that I will stick with my guns until the day that I die, because it is so true with the culture of BYU. Throughout the regular season, they are absolute killers. They play phenomenal basketball. They play phenomenal football. They do the best in the regular season. But when it matters the most, they underperform. Texas had to go through the first 4, so they had already played a game prior to playing BYU. They step up and they beat BYU. This is a team that's tired, hasn't had a lot of rest, just played, it was either the night before or the day before, or the 2 nights before. They come out and they just kind of put the pedal to the metal on BYU. I will say this every year. BYU will not make it to the games that matter. And they didn't even show up really. It seemed like they came in and, they have great talent on that team. Texas just did better. They competed better than BYU. I mean, another upset there. So those were 3 upsets that I found, pretty crazy for the tournament. There's bound to be some more, I'm sure. We're halfway through the second round. And I mean, like I said, I'll be continuing to update you throughout the tournament, and next week we'll have some more updates. We will be into the Elite 8 at that point. So let's go. Teams that are looking good to win right now. I obviously filled out a lot of different brackets. I'm in a couple different challenges and groups of people. Me and my wife actually filled one out together here at home just to put next to our TV. The teams that I'm looking at right now that I think have the best chances of winning the championship: Michigan, Florida, and Houston. Now, like I said last week, I am an Idaho native, and I was, rooting for Idaho. They started off pretty hot. They started well. But Houston's relentless defense and their ability to score the basketball when they need to pulled through, and Idaho just could not do anything after that. Houston's defense is probably top 3 in the nation, in my opinion, probably in the tournament at least, and they showed it. They put a stomping on Idaho in the second half. They really pulled through. They are a very sneaky good 2 seed in the tournament. Michigan also looked phenomenal yesterday in the second round of their game, and Florida, I mean, they were super dominant in the first round. So those are the 3 teams that I'm putting on lock right now to win a championship. I think that all 3 of those teams could pull through and win. Another notable mention, Michigan State. I watched them yesterday. They played very well. They have some absolute dogs on their team. That is a team that I could sneakily see getting into the Final Four. They played really, really well. I mean, Louisville made it a lot closer than, what the scoreboard showed. But Michigan State is sneaky good. Sneaky good. Also, Cohen Carr, dude, oh my gosh, he can fly. He's like a human airplane. It's so cool to watch him. But anyways, those are updates on March Madness, and that is it for the OT and OT corner. Or not the OT and OT, the OT corner. That is it for the OT corner for today. Next week, we'll be hitting on the March Madness bracket again. Thank you for everyone tuning in and watching this. I hope that my points about being an athlete and a competitor have truly stuck with you, and that if you have anything to say about that, if you have someone that really comes to mind when you think of athletes versus competitors? Drop it below in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening on Spotify, I appreciate every single one of you. Please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below. It helps truly grow the channel, and I want to reach as many sports fans as possible, because the more sports fans we have, the more opinions we're going to have, the more we're going to have to talk about. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Come back next week. Peace.